You know that person in every friend group who checks on everyone? The one who sends the "Are you okay?" text before anyone else notices something is wrong? The one who remembers that your dentist appointment was Tuesday and asks how it went on Wednesday? The one who shows up with food when you're going through something because they somehow knew you weren't eating properly? Everyone loves that person. Everyone leans on that person. Everyone assumes that person is fine. And nobody, not once, thinks to ask them how they're actually doing. Because the person who takes care of everyone has gotten so good at it that the world forgot they're a person too. If you are that person, this video is about to describe your entire life. And the one person you keep forgetting is the one looking back at you in the mirror. Let's talk about what's actually happening in the brain of someone who can't stop caring. Neuroscientists at the University of Virginia studied something called the self-other overlap. In most people, the brain maintains a clear boundary between my pain and your pain. When a friend is struggling, you feel empathy, but your brain keeps it at a distance. It processes their emotion as information, not experience. In chronic caretakers, that boundary is blurred. Your brain doesn't just observe someone else's pain, it mirrors it. The same neural pathways that fire when you are in distress fire when you see someone you care about in distress. You don't just understand that your friend is sad. You feel their sadness in your own chest, and your brain treats that borrowed pain with the same urgency as your own. That's not a personality trait. That's a neurological architecture that literally cannot tell the difference between helping yourself and helping someone else. But here's where it becomes a trap. Your brain figured out early that when you fix someone else's pain, the mirror pain in your own chest goes away too. So now you have a system. Someone hurts, you feel it, you fix it, you feel relief. That relief triggers a small oxytocin and dopamine release, the same chemicals that fire during bonding and reward. And over years, that cycle becomes the primary way your brain knows how to feel okay. Not through rest, not through self-care, not through asking for help, through fixing other people. I call the accumulated cost of this cycle the caretaker debt. The caretaker debt is what builds up when your brain has been running the fix others to feel okay program for so long that it forgot there was ever another option. And like any debt, you don't notice it until the payment comes due. Now, there are different kinds of caretakers, and they don't all carry the same debt. The first type is the one who was taught. Researchers at the University of Tennessee call this parentification. It's what happens when a child is placed in the emotional caretaker role before they're developmentally ready. Maybe you had a parent who confided in you about adult problems. Maybe you were the oldest sibling and you were told to be the strong one. Maybe the emotional temperature of your entire household depended on your ability to manage it. And so at 8 or 10 or 12 years old, your brain wrote a rule. If I take care of everyone, the environment stays safe. If I stop watching, something bad happens. That rule kept you alive as a child. But nobody told your brain to stop running it when you turned 25. So here you are, still scanning rooms for tension, still managing moods that aren't yours, still running a program that was designed for a house you don't live in anymore. The second type is the empath who just showed up this way. No trauma, no parentification, just a nervous system that came pre-wired with a wider receiver. Research by Elaine Aron at Stony Brook University found that roughly 20% of the population has a trait called sensory processing sensitivity. These are people whose brains process emotional and social information at higher resolution than average. You don't just notice when someone's energy shifts. You feel it physically. A friend walks into the room slightly off and your stomach tightens before they say a word. And because you feel it, you feel responsible for it. Not logically, neurologically. Your mirror neurons don't give you a choice. You didn't learn to caretake. You were born into it. And the third type is the one nobody warns you about. The performer. This person doesn't caretake because they feel your pain or because childhood taught them to. They caretake because somewhere along the way, being needed became the only reliable evidence that they mattered. Psychologists call this a contingent self-worth structure. Your value isn't based on who you are. It's based on what you do for others. And that distinction is crucial, because it means that every time you help someone, you're not just being kind. You're proving to yourself that you deserve to exist. And every time someone doesn't need you, it feels like a small death. Not because you're dramatic, because your identity literally depends on being useful. This is the most dangerous form of the caretaker debt because the person carrying it doesn't look tired. They look generous. They look selfless. They look like the best friend anyone could ask for. And underneath all of that, they are terrified that if they stop giving, everyone will leave. Now let's talk about the thing every caretaker does that they never admit to. The test. At some point, every caretaker runs a silent experiment. They stop reaching out. Not because they're angry, not because they're manipulating, but because they need to know if the relationship exists without their effort. You stop sending the first text. You wait to see if they call. You let a week pass, then 2, then a month. And most of the time, the silence is deafening. The person you've been carrying for years doesn't even notice you put them down. And that moment, that specific silence, is where the caretaker debt comes due. Because it tells you something your body has known for a long time, but your brain refused to accept. The relationship wasn't mutual. It was a service, and you were the provider. And here's what breaks most caretakers. It doesn't make them angry. It makes them sad. A very specific kind of sad. The kind where you realize the person you gave everything to never once wondered what you needed back. Not because they're cruel, but because you trained them not to ask. You were so good at being fine that they believed you. And here's the cruelest layer of all. Caretakers cannot receive. Someone asks, "How are you?" Your throat tightens. Not because you don't want to answer, but because you have spent so long being the one who asks that question, that you genuinely don't know what to do when it's aimed at you. Someone offers to help you move. You say, "No, I've got it." Someone tries to pay for dinner. You grab the check. Someone says you look exhausted. You say, "I'm fine." Every single time someone tries to hand you what you hand everyone else, you deflect it. Because somewhere in your wiring you learned that needing things is dangerous. That receiving means you're the weak one. That the moment you stop being useful, you become invisible. So you keep giving from empty, and you smile while you do it. And nobody knows you're running on nothing because you made running on nothing look effortless. But here's what I need you to hear. The caretaker debt is not a life sentence. No. You are allowed to put people down. Not permanently, not cruelly, but long enough to check if your own arms are broken. The people who deserve to be in your life are the ones who notice when you go quiet without you having to explain why. And if someone only calls when they need something, that's not a friendship. That's a subscription. And you have every right to cancel it. You spent your entire life learning how to carry others. The bravest thing you will ever do is let someone carry you. Not because you're weak, but because you've been strong for so long that you forgot it was ever an option. The person you keep forgetting is still there, still waiting for you to look in the mirror and offer them the same gentleness you give everyone else. Start today, not because someone told you to, because you've earned it 1,000 times over, and honestly, you earned it a long time ago. Now there's a specific pattern that caretakers repeat in romantic relationships that they almost never recognize until it's too late. And it explains why you keep ending up with the same kind of person, no matter how many times you promise yourself you won't. That's what we're getting into next.